Hey there, how's it going? I got a question for you. Has there ever been a time where a simple act has made a lasting impact in your life? I know that God has used people in my life to make a huge impact that has changed the way that I've looked at things or how I've operated. And in Acts 20, verse 35, it says this: "In everything I did, I showed you that by this kind of hard work, we must help the weak, remembering the words the Lord Jesus himself said, 'It is more blessed to give than to receive.'" I spent a lot of years in student ministry, and there was a guy at one of the churches that I served at that had his life radically changed by God through camps and mission trips. And he grew up in a single parent home. There wasn't a lot of money to go around, and there was a lot of people that would give generously that would allow him to join these experiences, these trips. And so as he got older, he wanted to do that for kids. So he would come into my office and he would just ask me to tell him stories about students. And he was laser focused on students that grew up in single parent homes, just like he did. And after I would tell him a bunch of stories about students that are currently in a youth group, he would write checks to cover the cost of whether it's a summer camp or a mission trip. But he wouldn't just pay for their experience. He would pray for them by name. He would write them letters and he would give them to me, and he never addressed anything. He never put his name on anything. He didn't want the kids to know who he was. But he'd give me those letters and I got to see the kids open them. I got to see their faces change as they realized that a perfect stranger had given them this opportunity. And then oftentimes they would write letters back to him, not even knowing his name, but they'd give them to me, and I got to be there when he would open them, and I'd see his face light up. It was just amazing to see. There was one kid in particular that he'd scholarshiped a couple years in a row, and that kid showed up at registration night for summer camp, and he had a big wad of cash in his hand because he'd gotten a job, and so he was excited to pay for his camp experience. He rolls up to the table. The registration person said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you've already been covered." And he's like, "Oh, what?" And instead of stuffing the money back into his pocket, he starts walking around the auditorium looking for another kid to go to camp. He starts asking these kids, "Are you going to camp? Why or why not?" Until he gets to this kid named James, who looks at him square in the face, and he says, "I'm not going because my family can't afford it." And he said, "Well, that's not an excuse anymore." So he walks him over to the table, asks for a registration packet for James to fill out, and he puts down $600 for James' camp experience. God did an amazing work in James' life that summer. We actually baptized him a few months after that. It was just amazing to see. It was amazing to see the investment into that kid that led him to an act of generosity where he realized that it was better to give than to receive. I got to tell the guy that scholarshiped him all those years, I got to tell him that story. And man, his face lit up like it was Christmas morning. And there was a little tear right in the corner of his eye. He recognized that he made a forever impact by giving. But yet, we all know what it's like to give. We also receive a little something on the other end. Fact is you and I have nothing to give other than the fact that we've received so much from God above. So my question to you and to myself is, what does that look like for us today? Who has God placed into our lives that's an opportunity to just give generously to, whether it's with our money or our time or just a listening ear or a positive attitude? We've received so much from God, but we're not meant to be vessels that hold on to it. We're meant to be poured into so that we can pour it out on the world around us. So my friends, I don't know what that means for you today, but I do know that God has placed people in our path for such a time as this. Man, if this was helpful, please share it. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Bye, friends.